Welcome to the Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the leader and largest online marketplace for midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
It's your host team of the Landlord Diaries, Kelly Bailey and Katie Lyon, coming to you from the Furnished Finder marketing team. We happen to be midterm rental investors ourselves, and Katie's going to let you know about her newest properties in this episode, so stay tuned. And Katie, we speak with a really great guy that we've met twice at the Midterm Rentals Summit. He's a coach, all sorts of great things. Ruben Kanya. What would you like to share with us about today's episode?
Yeah, Ruben is great. We talk about something that I feel like everybody is interested in, but a little bit intimidated by, which is insurance placements. So midterm rentals for people who have been displaced from their home due to fire or flood or some sort of damage. It's a great use case for larger midterm rentals. And it's just, we dive into it and we get even down to like napkin math, which is very awesome that we like talk real numbers. We don't always get the chance to do that. But Ruben is just a wealth of knowledge. And I love these episodes where we can really get into the nitty gritty and the deep details with like one specific strategy. They're great for anybody who really wants to just learn a lot of the ins and outs. So definitely tune in. Even if you don't have a larger property, it's something that I think will open your eyes to that question we get so often, which is, but what if my property is 3 or 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms? Would that work for midterms? So we discuss that at length, and it's going to be incredibly valuable for everybody.
Ruben Kanya owns a handful of 4 to 5 bedroom single-family homes, but controls around 30 in total that he rents to families displaced by disaster at 4 times the long-term market rate. Ruben has over a decade of real estate and furnished accommodation experience, is a broker in Georgia and Massachusetts, podcast host of the Real Estate Experiment Show, and real estate coach for the midterm rental insurance niche. We are so excited to talk with you about the insurance world today and your niche of midterm rentals. How are you, Ruben?
Hello. Thank you so much, Kelly, Katie, for having me. This was a treat. This was one that was long overdue. So I appreciate both of you making the time to sit in the studio together. Thank you for having me. I'm doing fantastic. Utterly better now that I'm here with you both. So
this is overdue. I feel like we have crossed paths so many times that it's always just been like barely a miss where we don't get to connect or say hi or share stories or whatever. So I'm so excited we're finally here today.
Yeah. And it was nice to meet you in the flesh, Kelly, as well. I know it was nice.
Sure.
We just saw each other. What has it been? 2-3 months now already? Jeez.
Yep.
Losing
So
track.
Ruben was at the Midterm Rentals Summit with us in 2023 and 2024. So if you want really good, high quality networking with other midterm rental investors, come to the Midterm Rental Summit. It's each year around April to May, and you'll meet wonderful people like Ruben. And what I love about you, Ruben, is how genuine you are and knowledgeable in the space. So I'm so excited and really want to know what motivates you and gets you excited about the midterm rental insurance space.
Yeah. What gets me excited is being able to solve a problem for a very different avatar and solving our own problem as business owners as well. And that has a mutual benefit for everybody. And then the third mutual benefit is if I can figure out how to solve that problem over and over again the right way, then I can also teach others how to do it, which is entrepreneurship 101. We're always scratching our own itch. So looking for that to be the supply to the demand, and I think that's what gets us the most fulfilled, especially when you hear back from the family that you're helping, and also you can also look for your bank account for the receipts. It's a mutual win, right?
I love that. So tell us about how you got involved in insurance housing and why does it mean so much to you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Katie. It means a lot to us for a few things, right? I think personally, I mentioned scratching our own itch. Well, we were operators, right? And we always, it's funny on the podcast, I'm constantly educating myself and interviewing others of, how, what are the different niches in real estate, right? And you have like multifamily, you have single family, LTRs, you have Airbnb, you have midterm rentals. And we went the Airbnb route. Originally, I was interviewing a bunch of people around multifamily, so I thought that was the route. But I hadn't done the math. And so when I started to do the math, I'm like, you don't need 1,000 doors to create a business that not only has the asset in itself, but there's cash flowing, there's tax advantages, there's depreciation, all that. You can kind of get it all in a way that is less is more. So we went that route. And that was the introduction to insurance came from a partner of mine, which shout out to Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, because I'm constantly always learning from my peers. And I know Rachel was here in the lab, as I call it, but for you, in the studio, in the Furnished Finder studio. And she's a good friend of mine and, peers, and we kind of share leads amongst each other. And she had shown me one where it was just a ridiculous amount that she was charging for. And I'm like, please enlighten me. Like, how are you able to get these kind of margins? And she told me about insurance, which when we hear, it's funny that we use the word midterm rental, because I think truly that's an internal kind of code, word that we use, just like STRs and out to the outside world, it's Airbnb for STRs, and midterm rental really for me or for us specifically when we say insurance, it's essentially corporate housing, right? And so how we discovered it was just interest, being curious, and then finding out how can I get more of that. So I got educated, understood how to get in front of these companies, which I'm very happy to talk about, leveraging platforms like Furnished Finder, of course. And when we got our first contract, there was a family that was displaced because of tree fall on their home, and they extended for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months at a premium that we had never seen before. And that was the very thing that said, hey, instead of having the grass is always greener, to invest in another state that can bring better returns, why don't we double down on this model and leverage the platforms like Furnished Finder to do so?
Love that so much. There's a lot of heart and hospitality that goes into the midterm rental insurance niche, right? It's like, while it can be lucrative, you're also taking care of someone in the middle of a disaster. So you keep mentioning that that's what keeps you, reminds you why you're doing it, along with the, 4 times the long-term rental rates. That combination is a win-win. So do you have one of those stories, or can you go a little deeper into the family that the tree fell on their house? Like,
oh my gosh,
what's it like taking care of someone through disaster?
Yeah, so I think, just to give a little bit of background of, how the family got here, when we say corporate, B2B, or midterm rental insurance or corporate housing, I see it all as different synonyms for the same service. And so typically what happens is when a home or what we call a policyholder lives in a home, and it's a home that they own, not to be confused with an investment property, typically a home that they primarily live in or secondary home. And, in that case, they had a tree that fell on their home and split the home in half, which meant that the immediate solution for usually is you'd call your insurance company and say, hey, listen, we literally have a tree in the middle of our living room. We'd like to file a claim. And there's 2 steps. One is filing the claim, which takes investigation, et cetera. And, someone needs to come out there, et cetera. But then the immediate solution as a policy holder is for you to be temporarily displaced. And number 1 is the hotel. And number 2, when I say number 1 is phase 1, is immediately it will get you in a hotel. But then
Right.
we're trying to look for an alternative midterm rental solution until your home is fixed, which is how we, for that family, which is very actually interesting, it was a family of 2, literally a husband and wife. And the gentleman was on a walker. So they actually walked one of our first properties. And this is actually why I love my buy box, and I think it's very critical. Most of our homes are ranch-style homes, specifically because we want to keep in mind that there might be individuals that maybe have some physical limitations or even disabilities, for lack of better words. And so what we want to do is when we buy a lot of our homes, and whether you're listening to this, you're looking to buy, you're looking to manage, you're looking to co-host, or whatever your strategy is, we always look for homes that are very not so much ADA compliant, but at least friendly, so that, even if there's some stairs at the front of the house, is there an alternative entrance that you can access without having to access stairs? And so lo and behold, this gentleman, the husband, needed to actually have a larger bathroom, and in order to be able to access the home. So we said, well, maybe not this home, but how about that home 10 minutes away from the street? So they actually ended up walking our second property. And then, again, same style, ranch style, 4 to 5 bedroom homes. It's a sweet spot, accessible without needing to go downstairs or upstairs. That means washer on main, laundry on the same floor, etc. Even if you have a basement or a second floor, the question you need to ask yourself, at least I like to ask myself if I'm looking to buy a deal, is, which we like to buy our deals, is, can I live on this home one floor without needing to access the second floor or basement? In that case, it was checkmark. So the buy box criteria worked. Then what was very interesting for us to understand, I think it's important when you work corporate housing, is, are you willing to make some adjustment for that family? They needed some grab bars for that shower that was a walk-in shower. And we said, of course. We don't want to be a penny wise and a dollar foolish, because it means that if we install some grab bars for, I don't know if it was $200 that it cost to install, or $300, well, we were getting $8,000 a month for that property on a $2,400 overhead. So, I mean, to us, it's like, accommodate the family, be a problem solver, and then provide them a place in need. And then what's interesting is the continuous extensions that come to play, because when a tree falls on your home, there's contractors, there's permits that need to be pulled, and it takes longer than expected, right? So that was the fulfilling, and they were the nicest people, older couple, and you'd call them and they'd say, thank you so much. I'm like, hey, listen, this is not charity. Like, you're paying for this as a policy holder, as you should, and it's just our pleasure that we can provide the supply to your demand. So I appreciate the gratitude and thankful, but it's thanks to your insurance company as well. And I'm glad we could be a partner and being able to provide a home for you.
I think this whole approach is just a demonstration of how many different ways you can take a midterm rental, right? You can't do that with a lot of other property types with real estate. Like if you have a commercial property, you're going to use it for, retail or office or storage or warehouse. If you have a short-term rental, you're dealing with vacationers, right? Whether that means that you're in Miami or you're by a lake in Michigan, whatever it is, like you're for that traveler type. If you're in long-term rentals, same type of thing. You're looking for these people who are looking for long-term housing. Midterm rentals, there's so many different use cases. You can have the travel nurses, the corporate travelers. You can have grandparents going to visit their grandkids for 2 months at a time. And you can also have this really, really big need that we're discussing here today, which is this insurance placement that we all hope we never will need. But that happens. I was actually discussing this use case with my mother-in-law the other day, and she was like, well, we've never gotten placed in a home for when something happened to our houses. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't happen every day. And thank God you've never gotten had to be completely displaced from your house. But it happens, right? It happens. Yep. And these people need a good home and they need somewhere good to stay. So when you're making these midterm rentals, you're fulfilling people's needs and 100%. You're really solving these problems. It's this different level of hospitality that I think really comes full circle.
100%. Yeah. And I have to say, it does happen. It is more prevalent than we actually think. And especially because it's not like, I think when you think of a tree falling on a home, that's pretty extreme. But the extreme sometimes is a matter of, hey, like, there might be mold or there might be, and again, with respect to your insurance company, there's a lot of different nuances. And this is why I always say speak to a public adjuster before you even call your insurance company, because there's a difference between the source and the causation of something. If there's mold because there was a leak and therefore, it's no longer for you to have it, then the claim is on the leak, not the mold that was there prior to maybe, so there's a lot of different nuances. And that's actually why it's in your best interest to contact your public adjuster. If you're listening, if God forbid, someone that goes through this, have them contact a public adjuster. They act kind of like, it's as if I call them like a lawyer for real estate on behalf of your filing for claims, because sometimes there's language that could get us in trouble and that you actually don't get the coverage that you're supposed to need. So it's best to go through a public adjuster. They'll know exactly what to say, what to not say, what to just keep very straightforward, whether you get yourself in, you don't want to get yourself into trouble by just using the wrong terminology, like a flood versus leak. Well, we don't have we don't have flood insurance, but we would cover a leak. Like there's a lot of different nuances. So that's just a thing that I want to mention. But it is more. I say all this to say, like, it could be roots in your line, and then there's, maybe they cover, sewage backing up into your home. Like there's a lot of different things that you need to be aware with your insurance policy to understand what your rights are, because I've helped a lot of homeowners as well who just didn't even know what area they should be looking on their insurance policy that makes them eligible to qualify for what is called loss of use, which is what we tap into when we're helping a family. So it's a whole learning and education process. It's more prevalent than we even think.
It is. And there's a reason that you have coverage for that with your homeowner's insurance. And we hope you never have to use it. But if it happens, we as midterm rental operators can provide a great solution for it. So I love that you've taken on that niche. I also think that this is one of the areas that is maybe a little elusive and a little intimidating to midterm rental operators and investors out there. So I'm excited to dig in. Let's start with just tell us about your portfolio, the value of it, and how you have grown it over the years. And also if there are others that you manage that maybe you don't own or you co-host, or just kind of what's it all look like right now?
Yeah, sure. So we own 6 and we manage 3 co-host, and and then with my mastermind, I've essentially have done for you in a box where we help you buy, we'll help you furnish, and then we help you operate your own, because I like teaching people how to fish instead of giving them a fish. So that's actually typically how people come to us, because like, can you manage? We see that you manage properties well. We'll say, well, we can teach you. We have a consult program for that, and that's how we get there. And then it's fulfilling to see others being able to serve, and also obviously create a cash flowing asset for themselves. So our buy box is 4 to 5 bedrooms, ranch style, master on main if possible. Usually on a ranch home or bungalow, however you utilize the language. There's a master on main. We love basements. Basements that have access to the outside specifically, and that's just a long-term play of being able to, even down the road, who knows, convert it into a duplex. Why not? Why not buy a 2-for-1 deal? So we're very strategic in that sense. So a lot of the homes you'll see, they have access to a walkout basement. And there's we have some homes with kitchenettes, second kitchens. We're very strict in our buy box, and that's because we're serving a very specific niche. And just for the listeners out there, and it's fascinating because actually at the time, 2 MTR summits ago, Jesse's event, like a Furnished Finder deck that was shared, and it was fascinating to see that there was a shortage in 4 to 5 bedroom homes, and the reason why we love that sweet spot for 4 to 5 bedroom homes is because you're solving a very different problem than a 2-bedroom home, which I think the majority, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, the majority maybe of Furnished Finder has a lot of 2 or 3s or maybe 1-1s for that travel nurse, but we're serving a niche where when people go on Furnished Finder, there's going to be less inventory of 4 to 5 bedroom homes. And we love that as well because we're solving a very different problem. I typically call it the family of 5 with 2 dogs that needs to relocate. The hotel is not an ideal solution for them. Just, they don't have the dining room. They don't have the backyard, the fenced in backyard for their pets. They need more space. So I always say, if you're coming from a 2-2 condo and you relocate me in a hotel, that might be a sweet vacation. It actually might be a nice comp because I get all the amenities as well on the front desk. I might be willing to stay as the phase 1 alternative solution. But for a family of 5 with 2 dogs, it's a very, very temporary solution to live in a hotel. And if you think about the logistics of it, it might be 2 different rooms. The families are not together. Or maybe if it is 1 room, you got 2 queen beds and like the parents are there. Maybe the kids got how are you changing? It's just,
I don't even want to be in a hotel if I'm alone. Like I can't open the window. I like the air conditioning's running all the time. I mean, it's like very, their hotels are made for a short stay and extended stays.
They're great for like a weekend.
Right. And extended stays, they have their place and we all need them from time to time. And if that comes up, that's what it is. There are some great extended stays. But you know what? It's a different type of luxury to just be able to go inside somewhere and feel at home. But yeah, I like how you made some call outs there that I want to follow up with. You're dead on. We have about 50% of our inventory on Furnished Finder is 1-bedroom or studios.
There you go.
So it's half of our supply. Now, there's not families that are being displaced. There's not 4 people on my block or something that are getting displaced every single day, right? It's not, but there is a need. There is a need. So we have the least amount of 4 to 5 bedrooms. And in a lot of markets, it is very underserved. But there's a little bit of, like you're saying, a different approach to it. You've got to have some patience. You've got to have some education and knowledge going into it, because it is a different type of investment that you need to be comfortable with. But there is a strong demand, right? It's there.
Yeah. Well, it's a smaller pool, right? So because it's a smaller pool, then it's almost as if it's not that the demand doubles, but the numbers are proportionate with respect to the amount of demand. Yes, it might be less than 1 to 2 bedroom homes, but there's less inventory out there. Therefore, you get more of the lion's share of the inquiries that come in for that kind of space. So it's all relative. And and the biggest advice I could say, it's so relative. And like, that's the biggest advice I can give is data is all relative. And it's so interesting because before, because I'll talk to you guys about my hybrid strategy later about MTR and STR, but I hadn't done the math, right? And I think most people who don't do midterm rentals, who don't do short-term rentals, it's just a knowledge gap. It's they just haven't done the math. And when you do the math, if you're interested in doing the math, because it's not for everybody, you might be like, no, I'm good with LTRs, and that's fine. Power to you. But for us, I know I hadn't done the math, because I'm like, well, why would I pick to be 40% occupied or 50% occupied when I can be 100% occupied? Well, if you do the math, you can very well be 40% occupied and make a lot more than being 100% occupied. And when you start doing that math, right, and same with the level of demand and how prevalent it is, and what kind of, being very strategic in the kind of home that you buy, then you start or manage, or whatever the case might be, then you start to understand, oh, okay, this is a numbers game, and I understand which side of the data that I'm on.
Yeah, it is. It's I think about, like, if I go to buy a bottle of wine, there's a lot of bottles of wine that are like $7 to $20, right? And it's because a lot of people buy those. There's not a whole lot of bottles of wine that are $300, $400. That's super high-end wine, but they don't need to sell as many, right?
100%.
It's just a different marketing strategy, but it still is completely relevant, and it's completely doable, and it can have some really great returns. So I think this is a really amazing conversation. So Kelly, I don't think we've talked about this. We just added 1 midterm rental last month. We have 2 that I've already signed for that we're going to go live with in August. And we just arbitraged our very first single family home.
So you're jumped from 10 to 14 in a month or so. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're a little crazy, but I like everything we're talking about. I can relate to really well, because it's a little daunting, right? I'm like, hey, I've got to furnish a much larger property, right? And now I'm like, my carrying costs are a lot higher. When it sits vacant, I'm going to feel that a lot more. But then I'm like, but when I get the right people in here, they're going to be so appreciative, and this is going to do so much for them, and the numbers will work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Congrats.
But it is, but thanks. But it is like, it's a different type of feeling, and it's a little bit of, you have to prepare for a bigger investment, and you got to be patient, but there is a big upside potential to it.
And that's arbitrage as well, Katie, or you are buying that one?
It is an arbitrage, because I just like to test new stuff with arbitrage. It's also out by my house in Denver. So
Denver.
It's an expensive market out here,
It is
people.
very, yeah. I'm actually going to Denver this weekend. What
Are
area?
you?
Yeah, we're going to
I'm
that.
in like southeast Denver. We should connect.
Definitely. I'll be there for the Tony Robinson's and Sarah's conference.
I'll be at that.
Really?
We'll have to catch up.
Oh, cool. Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
See, look at that. We can't let the serendipity go to waste.
Networking at its finest.
There we go.
By law.
Well,
That's
I'm going
right.
to bring us back and wrap us back into the insurance conversation, and tie it into Furnished Finder as well. So when embracing the midterm rental insurance niche market, Ruben, you say that you need a blueprint. So what are the key highlights of your blueprint, and how is Furnished Finder a part of that blueprint?
Yeah, Furnished Finder is a big part of our blueprint, especially because, you know, when it comes to corporate housing, I believe at least it's a relationship based game. And Furnished Finder is just that, right? It's based on relationships. It's not a booking platform. It's a connect platform. Find the right property and then connect with the potential tenant, potential owner. And so we love that because Furnished Finder actually gives us the contact information, the juice. The juice.
Yes.
We need the juice. We can't talk about that enough. And so part of the strategy is I always say, if they don't know you, they can't flow you, right? And so these corporations are not going to be able to find you if you don't exist. No one is going to go to the name of your LLC.com because you just don't have that kind of traffic yet. And in an ideal situation, great. That's why I don't love my SEO people and all that, but there's already a platform. How many users do you guys get per month?
Million
visits, right?
You guys the traffic is already here, right?
Right.
It's if you're trying to sell cereal, go to the grocery store and
that's
get
what I'm
your
saying.
cereal put there. I am full of terrible analogies today.
No. By the way, I like that. I'll take that one. But no, Katie and Kelly, 100%. Another thing is, you guys have built a platform, and I'm plugging you guys for sure. But I want to level set here. When the blueprint is making yourself available, so whether that's Furnished Finder, Airbnb, Zillow Rental Manager, Zillow, you want to be on there. You want to make sure you are where you said it, Katie, where the relocation specialists are hanging out, and you guys have built a place where they're going. Relocation specialists, family members themselves, they're looking there and they're reaching out. And so the blueprint, first, having the right asset type, which I mentioned, 4 to 5 bedrooms, that's our sweet spot. Doesn't mean you can't do this without it. It just means we like to increase the chances of landing these contracts and helping a family. And the reason I say increase your chances is because someone might listen and be like, well, I don't have a 4 or 5 bedroom, so that's too bad for me. No, not the case. What I'm saying is the reason I like a 4 to 5 bedroom home is because I was able to host a family of 2 in a 5 bedroom home, but I can't host a family of 10 in a 3 bedroom home. So I get the best of both worlds by having the big home. That's why I personally like it. So we focus on that first. Then we focus on availability. We listed on all the OTAs, all the Furnished Finders, and we make ourselves available, reachable, and we communicate even on our listing that, hey, we're open to have conversation and to be flexible with your terms because we know that the marketplace sometimes is not as flexible. So we meet the person where they are, whether that person is the family itself or the relocation specialist themselves. We're meeting their pain point. Their pain point might be, oh, well, people want 12-month leases. Oh, well, Furnished Finder gives you that flexibility to name your rate per month. And on top of that, we say, hey, this rate that you see, we can be flexible with respect to if you need 6 months, 12 months, or if you need 3 months. And so we can put that in the description of our listings as well. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's the ultimate blueprint. If you say, well, Ruben, how can I find these insurance companies, etc.? Well, yes, first you can go hunt, but you want to also make sure that you can be hunted by being on the right platforms where they can find you as well.
Yes, that is huge. And putting your best foot forward on your listing, right? And like you said, being accommodating, and when someone messages, right back, right? They're looking. So make sure that you have your best foot forward. I think that's really, really big. And like you said, you don't have to just be listed on Furnished Finder, but if you're not, you're gonna be missing out on a lot of eyes that are hunting for those properties.
Yep.
So it's just something that if you're serious about it, you just can't miss it because they can call you directly. They can email you directly.
Yeah, I know.
If you have a website for your property or your company, you can put it in the description, right?
Build that brand.
We want you to connect. Yeah, we want you to have those relationships. Midterm rentals are about relationships, and insurance housing is the prime example of that.
I met a lady who's a legend in the corporate housing world, Tony, at the Midterm Rentals Summit this year.
Yeah.
And she happened to be at one of my lunch tables, and we're staying in touch. She has, looks for properties all over, but she was giving me feedback on Furnished Finder as far as she's literally, it sounds like a dating app or something. She's swiping quick and deciding, yep, this is one I can go after for my clients, or nope, this is not the right bedding or not the right, not the right amenities. Why is there a 2-seater table at this 6-bedroom, or Why, if it sleeps 6, why does it have 2 people at the table? So she said she can just literally swipe through and quickly decide which property she wants to go after and not go after. And of course, we have the housing request feature where you can put in one message, it pings landlords in that area, and now the properties can come to her and she can do the same thing. But that was, that's important.
That's
if you don't
big.
have your listing ready to go and you don't look professional, well, you're not going to get contacted by these insurance and relocation specialists because they have a reputation to protect.
Yeah.
So 5-star reviews, professional photos, decorating the space where it feels inviting and not lacking. So really good, really good.
It's Tony's great, by the way, and I've connected with her as well. And and just to piggyback on that, Kelly, is another thing is I believe that when you're in the Airbnb / short-term rental, you're optimizing for experience, and when you're a midterm rental, you're optimizing for functionality, right? So we like to show those dedicated workspaces. We like to show those spaces that, hey, by the way, like this is the dining room and it's set. It shows you how many people can actually sit there. And that's the thing that we actually, is still pending for some of our properties because they've been filled. We haven't gotten a chance to like reshoot some shots. But if you're starting fresh right now, I couldn't agree more on what you said. And even the silverware, I was talking with Tony about this, like just open up the drawer, show what you can afford. Do you have the entire set of pots and pans, or do you just have like 2 plates for a family of 6? Like show that it's fully stocked. These are the things you're trying to meet them. And these are the questions that they're wondering and asking anyway. Is this going to be suitable for my clients? Am my client going to have to pay for these things? Show them, right? And this is when you talk about an impression, that's what your brand is. Believe it or not, people are judging you based on how you look. You might say, oh yeah, but we have a great portfolio and you didn't open the cupboards. Well, I don't have the time to if you don't present yourself correctly on the front end. So I couldn't agree more. Kelly, you have to present yourself. I'm talking about above the fold. You only have a few seconds to name it right, say the right thing, say what need you're solving, flexibility, whatever the case might be, and professional photos, for Christ's sakes. Oh my God.
Yes, thank you. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, Kelly, how many times have we talked about professional photos?
Too many.
Furnished Finder
It's
could use
worth
some
it
coaching.
every time.
Hey, listen, some of the users on there make us look like rock stars just because they're just not taking that time to just.
And it's not expensive.
Invest.
It's not
No.
expensive, but it
Yeah.
makes such a difference. And also like playing with stuff. We talk about this a lot, how midterm rentals are an art and not a science. So it's like tinker with your photo. Which one is the cover photo? Play with your headline, tinker around with your description, right? You have to kind of see what will resonate with your target audience. But I love what you said about amenities. It's very important that your amenities are functional, right? Blackout curtains, free parking, washer and dryer, secured entry. Those are the amenities that midterm rental travelers want and that you need to be bragging about and making sure that you have selected them in your listing on Furnished Finder, because travelers can sort by those too. Like they can
100%.
sort, can I bring my dog? Can I bring my cat? Those are the amenities. They don't need pickleball. They don't need a wall where they can take Instagram selfies. They don't
Yep.
need a surfboard, right? They
Yep.
need extra blankets and plenty of pots and pans. Like they need
Big
the
difference.
boring stuff. Yeah.
Their needs versus wants, right? STRs are
Yes,
wants,
absolutely.
MTRs are needs. Yep.
Ooh, I love that. STRs are wants, MTRs are needs. Maybe we should make some matching t-shirts, Ruben. I'm here for
I'm
this.
saying, I'm all for branding, so let's make it happen.
Well, we're talking about short-term, midterm, combining them both, and that's one thing that you do well is you house these insurance clients that you don't know when they're moving out because the projects oftentimes get extended, and you don't always want to go ahead and fill your calendar because who wants to kick out someone that's already been displaced from their home, right? So tell others how you balance that with your Furnished Finder calendar and just in general how you communicate that with your insurance clients so that you are set up for success and clear on the move out policies.
Yeah, sure. So the way I look at it, Kelly and Katie, is typically you won't always be able to predict when you're going to get an MTR. However, we optimize ourselves very well that it's very prevalent, and we have the good news is you only got to get it right once or twice a year if you do it the right way. And so that's the peace of mind. Now, to answer what you talked about, I'll tell you where the hybrid comes in. The hybrid comes in when we do happen to know when they're going to move out because we have a 30-day notice to vacate. So that's one way for us to be able to control our calendars. But one of the things we do with our calendars as well is we always want to make sure, hey, we have the communication on when they're going to move out. And then when they are moving out in the interim, we're kind of like the airline industry where we never want a plane to take off with empty seats, right? Because then we're just losing. We have these properties, they're furnished. It can provide a place for someone to stay, even if it's short term. Remember, we're not stubborn. We're trying to solve a problem. So while we're optimized for midterm rentals, and with corporate housing, with a niche in insurance, it's not just exclusive to that. But what we do is we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by overextending ourselves and then turning that listing into an STR listing. And the reason I say overextending ourselves is we make ourselves available for a certain amount of time in our marketplace. It's not to exceed any 30 days or less, because if we don't and we then end up falling into the optimization for SDRs, then we might be accepting people for 4th of July when it's only May, which means that when a family comes in the next 2 weeks and say, hey, we need a place to stay for 3 months, we can't accommodate that family. So we're stewards of our calendars, very constantly. We have the metrics in place to understand the criteria and the dynamic pricing for other platforms where we're not going to take someone out too far out for a 3 to 4, 5 day stay. But what we are going to do is optimize or at least be open to receiving STR business between contracts. So we're always putting ourselves in a position where we can land a large contract, even if it means, hey, I might have a family that needs to move in for the next 6 months. Well, if I have someone staying for another week, I might say, well, can we actually have your move-in date be the following week after? Remember, keep in mind, for this avatar that we're serving, having them delay for 1 other week in a hotel is not going to break the deal if they're going to need to stay for 6 months. Remember, they're not like out in the street. They have a temporary solution that is not ideal. But if your property is the right way, you actually have leverage where you're the one who's dictating when they get to move in or not. All right. So that's how we remember, we're the prize in the business. We're the ones who are actually providing the need. So therefore, we're the ones who actually set the terms, but we're always optimizing so we're able to accommodate a long-term stay rather than a short-term stay. But why not have your cake and eat it too if you can, right, ladies?
Right. Well, but I think, what you talked about is when you're doing a hybrid method, you have to pick which strategy goes on top. Right? You have to have a preferred strategy. I think when it fails is when you're like, well, I'm just going to do both and I'm going to do both. I'm just going to take what comes. And that doesn't work. If you're going to take what comes, you are putting short-term rentals first. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you can't get upset when you don't get midterm rental bookings, right?
Exactly.
But you're right. You've got to be really thoughtful and you've got to think about who your traveler is. With these families or people who are being displaced and are in insurance housing, there's a high likelihood they're going to extend. And like you said, there's a high likelihood that they are going to be flexible with their move-in date because a week is fine, give or take here or there. But you're not going to get someone traveling over the 4th of July who you can say, could I just bump you back a week? Like, it's a solid no.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to, it's you can't have both as your priority. You've got to pick.
Yeah. No, you said it perfectly, Katie. You need to know what, I think you said it, which strategy comes on top. I love how you said that. That's 100% right. Know the order. Know your order,
right? All right. So I want to also talk about one thing that you've said, and Rachel always says as well when we talk to her, that you don't have to have 1 million properties or 1 million doors when you do this strategy. Specifically in midterm rentals. So speak to us a little bit more about that, a little bit what kind of the typical rates can be for these insurance placements, and maybe just a very high level, because I know this is an incredibly loaded question, but how someone could look at a market and say, well, would this work in my market, right? Like what could the potential cash flow be here? Because they're a little bit more of elusive numbers.
Yeah, no, a great question. So to answer that question, Katie, there's a few things. So one, you asked about how you don't need 1,000 doors. Okay, so the reason that that's true is because of the margins, right? And so I think everybody has their own numbers that they're looking for. and you can do your own math. But I think the really neat thing is you can do this math across the nation. And I'll give you a little bit of context of the math that we do, right? So, and it's funny, I was just telling this to my assistant. So typically in, when we talk about the kind of, money that we can gross per month, it's all based on a very calculated formula that the insurance companies are using themselves. So if you look on your insurance policy, just to get into the world of corporate insurance housing, there is this area on the policy that's called a coverage D, also known as loss of use, right? Or additional living expense. And typically that amount, if you look at your insurance policy, if you're at home and you're listening to this, I know a lot of us have not ever looked at it. You buy the house, you get the policy, you pay the premium, it's baked into your mortgage, and you forget about it, right? But if you get your hands on your insurance policy, you will see that the math is always the math, and it's mathin'. The math is mathin'. If you look at it, you'll see the number. It'll say you'll have an area that says coverage A. That's the dwelling value. Coverage D, without a hit or miss, is typically, there's three options. Either it's usually 20%, either 25%, or even 30%, right? And if not, sometimes, even better, sometimes it's unlimited. So 20% of what exactly, Ruben? It's 20% of coverage A. Now, what is coverage A? Coverage A is the dwelling value. Now, if you're doing the napkin math and you're saying, okay, how much can I actually make? The napkin math would be simply going on Zillow, typing in the property or an address or zip code and understanding how much that property is worth, and then doing 20% of that. So if we take a $400,000 home, if my math is correct, you take 25% of that, we'll pick the sweet spot. That's $100K, right? That means on that insurance policy, you have $100,000 called of loss of use, not to be mistaken as the money that will be used to fix the damage. It's the money that you have access to should you be displaced per claim, right? Which means that if you're displaced and you need a place to stay for 10 months, 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, 8 months, your budget is $100K, okay? Which goes a long way. Now, that's on a $400,000 home. What if your home is worth $700,000? Then that's how you start reverse engineering doing the math. Now, keep in mind, this is where the economics comes into play, the supply and the demand. If there's $100,000 worth of additional living expense, also known as coverage D, also known as loss of use, and your insurance adjuster is looking at a place where you can temporarily be relocated. Now, if they go on Furnished Finder and they see a bunch of options for $4,000 a month that fit the bill and are available, guess what? They're not going to go ahead and just say, oh yeah, go for the most expensive one. It's on us. No, they're going to say, hey, we have some options for you. Now, keep in mind, that's why I love the 4 to 5 bedrooms, because when you start thinking about 4 to 5 bedrooms, the options start to drop, right? And when you think of being pet friendly, the options drop. By the way, do this in your marketplace. Try it. Airbnb, Furnished Finder. Type in the name of your city, right? Without pets, look at the number, then put pet friendly. It drops by 50% every single time. I kid you not. It's crazy math. The math is always math, and I do the math all the time. So If you look at that 4 to 5 bedroom home, pet friendly, now you have a few amount of properties, and if a lot of those are not available because maybe someone's doing STRs and it's a really good property and you're doing MTRs, well, now guess what? Because there is low supply and a high demand for that specific family, you get to charge a premium. So you can potentially tap into a large share of that $100,000 that's there anyways. That's sitting there. As a matter of fact, for everyone that's paying a policy, the $100,000 that you don't use every single year is being invested back into the market. So these companies have trillions of dollars available for them. It should not, if you're receiving pushback, even as a homeowner, you should be like, no, that money is mine for me to use if I find the right home. Now, keep in mind, they're not just going to throw it at you, but that's how you reverse engineer the math as a homeowner and be like, so you're telling me, Ruben, if I have a home that's $500,000, you're telling me I can access what's the math on that? Is it 125? I'm now doing public math, right? Whatever that is, right? Dare I try to do public math? Yeah, that's the amount that you can put for your home's value. Now, there's a caveat to that, because if you're doing a napkin math on Zillow or Realtor.com, you're taking that values home and you're doing 20%, you're like, oh my God, I can charge like $250,000. Keep in mind, in some different states, land value is different than your land value or someone else's land value, which means that if you're just
Right.
taking like a property
value
that's
of
worth
your
1.2,
home is
value of your
different.
home is different, which means that, for example, you might be looking at a property in California that's worth $1.2 million. You're like, oh my God, Ruben, if I take 20% of that, it means that that's what I could probably charge and reverse engineer and divide by 12 and I can charge that. Slow down. There's land value as well, especially in a state like California that is worth a lot more. So therefore, you want to make sure you look at the dwelling value and don't just do the napkin math, because the land value for that area could be worth $600,000 or even $700,000, and the dwelling is actually worth $300,000, right? So you just use the napkin math to your own discretion. Zillow is a nice little trick, but typically you'll want to have the insurance policy in place so you can just do the math and actually get an idea of like, oh wow, so in an area where a home is worth this much, and if I factor in that the land value is taken out of that, the dwelling value times 20 to anywhere from 20 to 30% is actually what I could charge. You betcha, every single time.
Let's use your Atlanta properties as an example.
One example. So we'll go back to the. Okay, cool. Let's look at this one. So this family got relocated for a fire. So this is actually another strategic one. So we're in Smyrna. Love that area. Smyrna is a great area in Georgia. Very good neighborhood. We bought this property for $480,000. If I look at my loss to use on that, which I don't have in front of me, but if I were just to do the napkin math, because in Atlanta, typically land value is anywhere from 10%. And I know that because we just did a cost segregation study. So I'll do times 90% of that. It's $432,000, right? So if I take that $432,000, all I did there, it took the 10% of the land value away. It means my dwelling value is actually worth $432,000. You guys still with me? Cool. So the dwelling value is $432,000. I take 0.2 times 0.20, and that's $86,400, which means that what I'm saying is that it would not be unreasonable if someone were to come to me from my zip code close to my neighborhood, that they would have a very similar loss of use, and that helps me reverse engineer what I can charge. Now, there's two ways to do the math here. If we take that property, it says $86,400. I could do one of two things. I could do, well, what if I divide that by 12? All right, let's do the math on that. So divided by 12, that is $7,200 a month. Okay, great. That's if someone needs to be relocated and displaced for 12 months. It would not be unreasonable for me to charge $7,200 and it to be approved, because it shows here that that would be their allocated cost. Now, the beauty of it is in midterm rentals, it's rarely 12 months. They typically will start with 6 months, which means that if I do $86,400, that's the amount that we took from the 20% of the dwelling value at $432,000. If we take that and we divide that by, call it 6 months, that's $14,400. Now, am I saying that you're going to get a bid for $14,400? Yeah, you could. If they need to stay for 3 months, it would not be unreasonable if they don't have any alternative options and yours is the best fit for them. Because keep in mind, people need to stay in a very specific zip code for the school zones and for close to where they need to commute. So when they're pitching this to the insurance company, they say, we like this home. It's close. It reminds us of our home. I don't have to commute an extra hour. I can take my kids to camp, take my kids to work. We want this home. The insurance company, by math, can and will have to approve that. Now, if they push back, now this is why we get a public adjuster, or I would just know your rights, because I've helped many homeowners, believe it or not, was like, oh, they're telling me I'm running out of money. Let me see your policy. This is funny because it says unlimited on here. So could you go back and talk to them? And then it got approved. So just know you're right. So that's the simple math there. That I'll give you an example of that one right there. And we currently right now have a tenant staying there for $6,000. And the reason I took a discount on that is because it's for a fire, and typically anywhere from water damage, anywhere from 3 months or so. Fire damage is anywhere from 6 to 9 months. So I'm willing to have a longer stay at a discount for higher occupancy and profitability.
There's a couple of threads that I want to call out that you spoke to within that. And the first is, if you're listening to this and you didn't follow any of that math, that's okay.
No. Did I confuse you?
I was following you, Ruben. I am the queen of napkin math. Like, even quite literally, I have little scratch pads everywhere.
Look, this is me right now.
Yeah.
Doing the math.
The point is that the numbers can work, right? Everybody always, we hear all the time at conferences and in our emails and comments all the time, can it work if I have a larger property? Yes. Yes, it can. Okay. That's like the underlying message here. It can. but you have to be patient. You have to know how to market your property. Everything Ruben is talking about is offering families or individuals, anybody who's being displaced, which is the approach that we're talking about today, something high value, right? He's offering pet friendliness, right? Being in the right area, having 4 to 5 beds, having space, being accessible if possible, solving a problem. There is value where you can solve a problem if you can communicate how you're solving that problem, right? And this kind of brings our conversation full circle. If you have a property that's amazing, but you're not listed on Furnished Finder, or your listing is very subpar, well, you have a solution, but nobody knows about it, right? And you have to do both parts of those, right? You need to have a great solution and let everybody know about it. And that's what a business is, right?
100%.
If you think about it, any type of business is, there's a problem, they solved it, they told me about it. It's very simple, right? So be that problem solver and get creative. And if you hear, if you get a lead in your Furnished Finder dashboard and it's someone who's being displaced, or maybe a corporate traveler that's coming for a few months and they have a pet and you're not usually pet friendly. Well, can you be pet friendly? Right? Or if it's someone where they need an extra bedroom and you don't have one, is there a loft you can put a bed in? Like, how can you accommodate that? Like, how can you meet the need? I just think that's such an important mindset for everybody to get in there, because it is a business, and anywhere you can solve those problems is a business.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of business, I'm going to wrap us up with one loaded question, Ruben. A very loaded question. At the beginning, you mentioned you have your 6 4 to 5 bedroom homes that you own, but you also have around 30 properties that you control because you like to teach others this the insurance niche market and how to do it well. So with that being said, what does the contract look like and the communication with the relocation specialist to make sure that you're communicating clearly? And what did the contracts look like when you partner with your students or anyone that comes to you and has a great option for you, whether that's arbitrage, partnership, etc.?
Yeah. So when we're serving ourselves from our properties, our contracts are B2B, business to business, which is why I call it corporate housing. And what's on there is the tenant that's staying there, but who's financially responsible is the insurance company, which we say insurance, but really it's a relocation company that's working as the bridge partner between the policyholder, which is my tenant, and their insurance company. So without getting into the weeds of it, companies like an ALE Solutions or CRS Temporary Housing, a lot of these corporations, there's hundreds of them, they will act as the third party that facilitates the actual transaction. They're the ones paying on behalf of the tenant, but the tenant is still the tenant that's on the lease. And you're saying that the insurance or the relocation company, I should be more clear, that represents the insurance company and is working on behalf of them the exact same way like a headhunter would to find the right property for them, is financially responsible to make the payments on time. And that's why we love corporate, because we like wires. I don't know about y'all, save the trees, send it directly to our bank, keeps everything clean, and they always pay on time. And there's 2 things I want to make sure I don't mention it, that make sure I didn't fail to mention is those relocation agencies, which are the third party agencies. Those are the ones that you also want to make sure you're in their databases, right? Go to their website and in addition to being on Furnished Finder, in addition to being on Zillow, in addition, increase your chances by being in their direct databases because they look there. And all that database means is you go to the website and enter your property in there. Some of them don't even require pictures. It's in your best interest. And to answer your question, Katie, because I want to make sure that I answer not only the first part of your question on how you calculate, is this is prevalent in any marketplace. Anybody that has an insurance policy, anyone that gets displaced, it's prevalent everywhere, right? And so, I think it'd be ambitious to be like, oh, let me go in an area where there's fires. I'm not talking about that. We're not talking about fires or floods. That actually happens, but we're talking about day-to-day, like, issues. They're prevalent in every market. And going back to what you asked me, Kelly, is we help students nationwide and how it looks. If we're actually helping them with the contract, we'll actually write the contract on behalf of them and then give them their payout. But really, because I believe in teaching people how to fish, it's teaching them how to write their own contract with the insurance company, and because really I want them to build their own brand the exact same way Furnished Finder wants us to build our own brand. I don't want to have control, and so really we're teaching our students how to actually foster the relationship so that they know Kelly by first name and last name, and Katie as well, so that they can reach out to them individually instead of us coming as the gatekeeper, right? So that's the goal. And so we do our own contracts B2B, and then we also teach our other students, our which I like to call partners, how to do it as well for themselves.
And I want to piggyback on that and just remind everybody that you do get to connect directly with everybody on Furnished Finder, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to block you from sending your email address or your phone number or anything. Like, you get to connect. You get to talk to these people, which is hugely important with this type of booking, because they're not going to be there for a day or two. They're going to be living there and they want to know it. And the other thing is that we don't have the booking fees and we don't have the commissions, which is a huge deal when someone is working with larger numbers like this, right? A small percentage is a big number when you're talking about a 6-month insurance claim, and nobody wants to pay for that. So they want to book direct, and it truly is the best way to do it because you can get all the terms and you can get on board with, you know, everything the family needs and the insurance company and the relocate. Like, you can just kind of get everybody on the same page. So it's a really big deal that you're able to do that on Furnished Finder. And it's also one of those things, and this is why we kind of stepped out of our comfort zone and went ahead and got our first larger property, like I mentioned, is because if we don't try it, we'll never know. Right? We got to
100%.
try it. Try it. You can always pivot. Midterm rentals are a very easy investment strategy to pivot out of. You can do long-term. You can do by the room. You can pivot into something completely different, right? You could get rid of the furniture and do a long-term unfurnished if you needed, but you'll never know it if you don't try. So I would just leave everybody with that. And the other thing that I would say to take away from this is this was so much information packed in, and Ruben is a resource and full of knowledge. And Ruben, share with us the best way that listeners can connect with you, because I think you are just such a valuable resource and leader in the space that everybody should connect with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The best way, if you want to personally reach out, is probably Instagram, Ruben Kanya at The Real Estate Experiment. If you want more of this knowledge, I have over 1,000 videos on YouTube around this concept. So that's The Real Estate Experiment. Subscribe and just learn. That's how I got into this page, and you'll get a lot of value. So if you go on my social, if you go on YouTube, I think you'll also find my blueprint there that I have. It's free. You can just download it on experimentrealestate.com. Get your blueprint, your midterm rental insurance blueprint, and it's start the learning process. And like you said, take the action, because that's how we got there. We just said, let's see if this can work for me, and it can work for you if you're willing to do the work.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Ruben. We really value your opinion. You're genuine, and I really think to be a student or one of your partners would be a huge benefit. So reach out if you want to connect directly with Ruben. And just a reminder, we just talked mainly about the insurance niche for the midterm rental space today. There's tons of niches. A lot of people say, I want to go after travel nurses. I want to go after, relocation specialists or corporate housing of all sorts, right?
Yeah,
so
that's another one.
Figure out, tune in to the Landlord Diaries, and we have playlists on YouTube if there's a certain route you want to go, arbitrage, corporate housing, etc. And we're here to help every step of the way. We've got a great customer service team through Furnished Finder. You can always reach out and connect with them. And key check as well. Don't forget, when someone says yes, well, now what do I do in the midterm rental space? Well, it's more like a long-term rental. You do a tenant screening. You put a lease in place to protect yourself because it's over 30 days, and you collect rent payments. So get on our sister site, KeyCheck, and anytime you have a midterm rental booking, we can help you the whole process from Furnished Finder to KeyCheck. All right, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.